For those of you that just hopped on the call, if you have a guest or you are visiting Rotarian, drop me a note in the chat, as well as we're flipping our program order. So we're going to do a little bit of business, but we're going to put our bell ringers on about 12:40. Our special guest today, Peter Weber, has he had some time constraints, so we did a little flip. So be ready for that. Thank you, Deb, for your note about a guest. So let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay.
And if you'd all say it with me, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'm just going to make notes. So we see Jessica Nissen on our screen. She's our technical assistant, but I actually finally met her in person last Friday in her role with Mary Louise and Aspire. So it was nice to see Jessica in human form. So
yeah, it was nice to see you too. It's always cool to see people after being on a screen for so long.
Yeah, it was a nice treat. We both kind of looked at each other like, oh, we know you. We know each other. So that was great. And we appreciate your work very much, Jessica. So Ryan Collier will be providing our invocation today.
Thank you, Sue. Today's prayer is a prayer for those returning to school in a pandemic. I thought that topic was appropriate. And it comes from an anonymous source on jesuitresources.org. Would you prepare yourself in the manner that you're accustomed? Great Creator, hear our concerns of sending our children and educators back to school. We ask you to watch over everyone as times and routines are about to change once again. We pray for your love and compassion to abound as we walk through his challenging season. We ask for wisdom for those who bear the load of making decisions with widespread consequences. We pray for those who are suffering with sickness and all who are caring for them. We ask for protection for the elderly and vulnerable to not succumb to the risks of the virus. We pray for misinformation to be curbed, that fear may take no hold in our hearts and minds. As we exercise the good sense that you and your mercy provide, may we also approach each day in faith and peace, trusting in the truth of your goodness toward us. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Ryan. So let's move.
Oh, Sue, you got muted for a moment.
Yep.
No, you're not.
Can you hear me? Are we good?
Yeah.
Let's move to guests of Rotarians, and if Laura Tippon's on the phone, on the call, I'm going to start with you.
All right, thanks, President Sue and fellow Rotarians. It's my honor to introduce a couple of guests this afternoon, and the first is Brian Armstrong, who is our athletic director and assistant principal at South Salem High School. And our second guest is Dr. Chad Towie, who is the principal at North Salem High School.
Terrific. Thank you, Laura. And then Deb Patterson, you thought you would have a guest?
Yes, I do. My guest today is Jason Greenwood. He's the owner and the distiller of Divine Distillers Incorporated. You might see the name Divine Distiller under his screen there. They use locally sourced agricultural products here in their award-winning distilling of fine spirits and are located near the Salem Airport in what's become known as the Brewery District. And some of you may have met Jason on the Rotary Vocational Tour that he offered our club a while back. What you may not know is that early on in the pandemic, Divine Distillers made and donated $300,000 worth of hand sanitizer to area police departments, fire stations, other area businesses, as well as to the general public. And so I'm honored that Jason Greenwood is here as my guest today for our Rotary Club meeting. And since this introduction was pretty long, I'm making it a bell ringer. So welcome, Jason.
Thank you, Deb. And then my athletic director, Kyle Buse, I don't think he's quite on yet. My athletic director, Kyle Buse, will be joining us today as well. So I'm not seeing any other guests in the chat box. So John McCulley, I'd like to turn the program over to you, and I believe you have a head table today to share with us.
I do. Thank you, President Sue, and thanks everyone for their flexibility in accommodating our speaker who has another meeting right after he's finished speaking here. I do have a head table. This is like an interesting program with so many of us involved with our kids or grandkids or our own experiences dealing with sports and music and all the things that are overseen by the Oregon School Activities Association. So I've tried to put together a head table to reflect that. But first I want to introduce Cameron Hunt. Cameron is fulfilling his blue badge requirement by sitting at the head table today. He's a financial advisor with Edward Jones and lives in South Salem. So I'm glad that Cameron was able to sit at our head table today. Next at the head table is Brian Greer, who is representing student athletes at the head table. Brian played football in high school and at Willamette University. He's the president of Service Master of Salem, and Brian and his crew have been incredibly busy these past few weeks helping their clients deal with the aftermath of all the devastating wildfires. Next, I want to introduce Carl Rashkis, who is the retired head of the Salem-Keizer music programs. His leadership is largely responsible for the scores of OSAA state music awards that fill the trophy cases at our local high schools. And finally at the head table is Laura Tiffin, who already has been introduced. Laura is the principal at South Salem High School. Students at South excel in the extracurricular activities governed by OSAA, and those activities are an important part of the high school experience. So I appreciate everyone willing to sit at the head table today. Our speaker is Peter Weber. Peter has served the Oregon School Activities Association, or OSAA, which is a lot easier, for 21 years and has been executive director since 2016. He was previously an assistant executive director, and before that was OSAA's public relations director. Peter has been editor of the OSAA handbook, overseeing significant advancements in the association's website, and developed a rankings formula to draw state championship brackets. He has also worked extensively with rule interpretations and coordinated state championships in soccer, speech, golf, basketball, and baseball. Peter is from Beaverton, and he learned competition at an early age. He is the 7th of 8 children, so you can imagine the competition in that household. He attended Central Catholic High School, where he participated in soccer, basketball, and golf. He holds a degree in communications from St. Mary's College in California. So please welcome Peter Weber.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that introduction. I'm going to share my PowerPoint with you here, but again, just want to thank you for the opportunity to be with you today. Again, thanks to John and to Sue for having me, and an opportunity to share a little bit about the OSAA, who we are, and then also some of the things that are happening now, obviously in the throes of the pandemic, and how school activities are potentially going to be able to begin again, and working with state agencies, working with the governor's office, and obviously working with our member schools. So with that, we will get going here with presentation. So again, what I'd like to speak to today is a little bit of OSA information and our structure, and then also about our activities calendar, take you through the website a little bit, just briefly about some of the information and resources we have available, speak to a couple of specific initiatives that we have going right now, and then certainly leave time at the end for some opportunities for questions and answers. So again, thank you for having me. Our mission statement, the mission of the OSAA is to serve member schools, providing leadership and state coordination for the conduct of interscholastic activities, which will enrich the educational experience of high school students. We work to promote interschool activities, provide equitable participation opportunities, positive recognition, and learning experiences to students while enhancing the achievement of educational goals. I think the important thing from our mission statement here, and one thing certainly that sets us apart from club activities and private activities, sports and otherwise, is our basis in education. We are focused on education-based activities, and we are intentionally tied to our member schools. That's important for us. You see there in the mission statement reference to the educational experience and enhancing the achievement of educational goals. Those are our goals for students. We want them to walk across that stage for graduation, and we believe that the opportunity to engage and participate in interscholastic activities will enhance that and allow them to do that. So certainly that's a goal that we have. In terms of the OSAA, we are a private nonprofit, board governed organization. We were actually founded in 1918, so similar to what Sue said, 101 years for Salem Rotary. We are in our 102nd year. We have 293 full member high schools from around the state. Actually, this year we're also including 6 Washington schools. That's something new for our organization. There's a couple of schools just over the river in Washington that we're looking for a place to call home, and so we've invited them into the Oregon Association and are working with them this year to provide opportunities for their kids. Many people are under the impression that we're a part of the Department of Ed, but we're not. We're separate as a private nonprofit group. We have over 110,000 students that participate in our 19 activities annually. So we have a wide reach with students across the state in our 293 full member schools. In terms of our funding sources, we're funded primarily through our championship events, state championship playoffs, et cetera, corporate sponsorships, and then also our member dues and fees for member schools. And in terms of our governing bodies, we have 2. We have an executive board, which is a 13-member group, primarily involved with the operations, policies, finances of the association. It includes superintendents, principals, and athletic directors from around the state. And then we also have a delegate assembly, which includes 42 members, 1 representative from each league in the state, plus some representatives from a few of our affiliated organizations. That group is more focused on the Constitution.
Sorry to interrupt, but people are noticing that your slides are not moving. Are you meaning to switch between slides?
I'm about to switch to another slide, yes.
Okay.
So do you see the information and structure slide with the governing bodies at the bottom?
No, it's still the cover or the lead page.
Okay. So let me back out of that. I apologize for that.
It's always something new on Zoom.
There's always something.
There we go.
How about that? How's a little bit better? Okay, sorry about that. So again, in terms of our governing bodies, the delegate assembly, 1 rep from every league in the state, focus on our Constitution, our articles and rules, certainly things around eligibility and those types of things. There are 37 leagues around the state, so each has a representative along with some of those affiliated organizations. We work closely with a number of organizations around the state, certainly the Department of Education, our school administrators, school boards, and then our athletic directors, coaches association, officials association. We have a number of educational groups that we work closely with throughout the year that all have a vested interest in what we're trying to do with the students in our state. And although we're primarily known for our state championships, we award in a typical year 113 team trophies and 426 individual championships. We also have a number of other areas referenced here. Our eligibility. We work very closely with a sports medicine group made up of physicians, athletic trainers, and doctors from around the state regarding sports medicine issues as well. Our equity and diversity committee, focusing on providing an equity lens to the work of the association. Our inclusion committee, as we look for ways to include as many students as possible in the activities that we offer. And then our sportsmanship committee, trying to make sure that the events that we're holding are welcoming and safe for all concerned. certainly as we've worked through the last 6 months with the COVID-19 pandemic, working with the governor's office and the Oregon Health Authority, a number of directives and parameters have come down from that group. The governor's office basically has taken the lead with regards to sports in the state. So obviously Oregon Department of Education with regards to the school reopenings, and even though OD is involved in that, specifically the direction for K-12 school sports is coming directly from the governor's office and the Oregon Health Authority. And I think that's an important distinction as we move on into some of these other topics I'll be talking about. As a result of that and the direction that was provided back in early August through the governor's office, our executive board made some decisions to change our typical activities calendar. I want to take you through that briefly here. So we started our association year on August 31st. So that's when schools are able to potentially start their practices and things like that. We know that this is not a normal year, and there's a number of different pieces to that puzzle for schools and districts around the state. As a board, they decided to take a 4-season approach to the year. Typically, we have a fall, winter, and spring season, but with the changes for this year, the board opted to push our seasons to later in the year. So you see seasons 2, 3, and 4 listed there. The winter starting at the end of December, the fall season, season 3, starting at the end of February, and the spring season, season 4, starting at the end of April. We also left season 1 here at the beginning, and a couple of reasons for this approach. Number one, our executive board was trying to limit overlap between seasons as much as possible. We looked to our neighbors in Washington and California and Nevada who have made similar changes to their high school activities calendars and looked at the approaches that they took, and our board felt that an approach with 3 distinct seasons starting at the end of December made the most sense from an overlap situation. In season 1, then, we've allowed schools, again, at the direction of the governor's office and what's allowed schools to make those decisions locally as to whether they would be able to open up for potential activities participation as we move forward. We've removed some of the restrictions on out-of-season coaching to allow for that to happen in those areas where it can happen. So specific to season 1, again, as I mentioned, any sport or activity allowed by the governor and OHA's directives, primarily non-contact or minimal medium contact sports and activities. And it's primarily based on the school's learning method an instructional method as to what they may be able to do. We have schools in some parts of the state that are back on site. Again, mainly our smaller schools. We have some that are doing some hybrid learning a couple of days a week. And then the very vast majority of our schools, as you're aware, are in a comprehensive distance learning, a CDL format. And depending on the format that the school is in, based on the governor's K-12 school sports guidance, that's what allows decisions to be made locally. Again, indoor versus outdoor activities, the governor's directives are focused on outdoor activities primarily, unless your school is back in person, but allowing for opportunities for students, again, at the discretion of the local school district in those areas, primarily in those outdoor activities. I know I have 2 boys myself. We live here in Wilsonville. I have one son who's a freshman this year at Wilsonville High School, and they started their first workout last night for baseball. They were out on the field, all the kids in masks, very socially distanced, etc., but an opportunity for those kids to be out there. That was their first workout last night. As I mentioned before, we've worked with our school districts. We've done some surveying of the schools as well in the last few weeks. Different schools are opening at different rates, etc. In our surveying, we found that of our 290 schools or so, about 140 are planning on some type of workouts or training or practices potentially for schools this fall. Obviously, that depends on their local situation and what they're comfortable with. But those are what schools are talking about doing right now. We also have about 50 schools that are planning on potentially some contests. Again, those are primarily our smallest schools, a lot of them in eastern rural Oregon, some in southern Oregon. In those activities that are allowed by the governor's office, primarily the outdoor, as I mentioned before. All other OSAA rules and policies are in effect. Coaches need to be certified. Students need to be eligible. Officials need to be used if there's going to be a contest played. I think one of the things that comes up quite a bit in the conversations with schools is the difficult conversation of when a school is in a comprehensive distance learning format and they're not able to necessarily bring students back into the classroom. That can be a difficult conversation where potentially they're bringing kids back in to participate, again, outdoors in an activity. Those are tough conversations. I think we all want to see kids participate. We all want to see kids get engaged as much as possible if it can be done in a safe manner. Certainly, we're supportive of our schools focusing on the primary objective of getting kids back into the classroom where they can, focusing on getting the school year started here in the last couple of weeks for most of our schools. Those are the conversations we've been having with our superintendents and principals. They're focused on getting kids their educational environment going this fall. And while they do want to have activities going where they can, they're taking a very conservative and cautious approach in many areas on that. And we're supportive of that practice. And that needs to be done at the local school level. Again, I mentioned seasons 2, 3, and 4, just a quick snapshot of those. You see the winter sports, swimming, wrestling, and basketball. We do require 9 days of practice prior to these sports participating potentially against another school. We've limited down the seasons to 7 weeks of competition, reduced the number of contests, and then left a week at the end of the season for an OSAA culminating event. We're not sure exactly what those culminating events will look like at this point. We're still having conversations with our member schools, getting feedback from the membership. Obviously, there's a number of restrictions in place regarding large group gathering sizes and those types of things. The other thing to note here is, per the governor's guidance at this point through OHA, the sports of basketball and wrestling are currently prohibited. They're not allowed to occur in the state. So there are opportunities, again, for training and conditioning, but no contests in wrestling or basketball due to the contact nature of those sports. We're working and trying to advocate for those opportunities where we can with OHA and the governor's office, but certainly something would need to change between now and season 2 in order for those activities to move forward with competitions. Similarly, OSAA season 3, starting at the end of February, our traditional fall sports, cross-country volleyball, soccer, and football. Again, similar 9 days of practice and the 7 weeks of competition as well. Just like with wrestling and basketball, currently contact football is prohibited. So that's another thing, again, that we'll be watching closely and working with the governor's office and OHA to determine if there's opportunities there as well. Season 4, our traditional spring sports, we extended the season out to June 26 in order to provide equitable seasons. Again, the 2 weeks of practice and the limited 7 weeks of competition and our culminating events. Obviously, these season 4 events are our outdoor activities, a number of which can be done now in season 1 if schools choose to. We do have some of, as I mentioned, some of the schools in Eastern and Southern Oregon participating in some of these events at this point here in season 1. And then, as I mentioned before, we're not just a sports association, we're an activity association. So cheerleading and dance, we had meetings with those groups last night, speech, and then obviously music, solo, choir, band, and orchestra. I know how important the music is, especially to the Salem-Keizer area, the proud tradition that you have of supporting music and the success that you've had in those programs. Our activity seasons are typically not defined. They're not limited to a fall or a winter or a spring. They may encompass 2 or even sometimes 3 seasons. So we kept that with no defined season. We have set culminating event weeks in the activities as well. And specific to music, a lot of the instruction and the guidance that we have currently from ODE is focused on that limited in-person instruction that schools potentially have the opportunity to do with very small groups, 10 or less in cohorts, those types of things. The guidance thus far has not really referenced after-school activities in music. We're working with ODE currently, providing some information from our national organization, the NFHS, that they've done some work on, and trying to find out what opportunities are available, where the size limits are, what the protocols and procedures are. We're hopeful that we're going to be getting that information very soon from ODE. We've been in contact with them for the last few weeks on that. I know as a music parent myself, my son is a freshman at Wilsonville, very involved in the choir program. This is important to me anyways, but it's especially important when I go home each night and he's asking me, hey, when can I do my choir stuff? So it's a critical piece to all the activities that we do, and we're working on that with ODE currently. Just briefly, again, I mentioned our website. We have a number of pieces of information on the site. We're trying to keep that updated as best we can. I'm going to try and go to the website here. Hopefully I won't mess this up with the sharing. Are you able to see that picture on the website there?
No.
Okay.
See, I still see the slide.
Okay, let me work on that, right? How about now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this is the OSAA website. We have a link to our COVID-19 information. You can get to that basically on any page on the website. And so we keep this updated. This is a good place to go to find out the latest of what's happening. You see our tabs here, our latest OSAA information, our release about the change in activities calendars. We have updates and memos here going all the way back to March when all of this first began. We have a section on frequently asked questions that we get from parents and schools. We're continuing to update that throughout the fall here as we go. We have links to reopening guidance from both OSAA, ODE, the Oregon Health Authority, the state, etc. Additional resources from CDC, the NCAA, and other groups. And then also a link to our contingency groups. These are groups that have been meeting here for the last couple of months specific to each sport and activity, determining what we might be able to do moving forward with protocols and procedures in each individual sport. So a lot of different information here that you can see and have access to specific to that information. So again, that's our website and some of the updated information that we have there. Going to go back to the PowerPoint here. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
So I just wanted to reference a couple of OSAA initiatives before we open things up for questions. Two specific that I wanted to reference. One is our OSAA Foundation. We started that back in 2005. It provides funds for student assistance. It helps with concussion testing for schools and students around the state, and also participation grants. Just in the past couple of weeks, we formed an emergency response fund through our foundation, working with our title sponsor, On Point Community Credit Union, to where every $1 donated, On Point will donate $2 up to $10,000 total, and that we would provide that money coming through the OSAA Foundation back to those schools and those communities hardest hit by the wildfires here in the recent weeks. So we've had a decent response. We just rolled this out last week. And we have that information on our website, on our social media, et cetera. But hoping again to be able to support those schools and communities that need the help right now, and do what we can to help them get back on their feet. Additionally, another topic that's very important to the OSAA, we've been working for about the last year and a half with groups like ODE, the school administrators, school boards, et cetera, around racial equity training. It's been an issue at some of our events in the last few years. We've had incidents take place. And again, we're trying to create that welcoming and safe environment for everybody at our events. We just launched earlier this month our new OSAA racial equity training course. It's about a 20-minute course on our website that we're encouraging schools, administrators to take, again, to get that conversation either going in their schools or in some of our districts like Salem-Keizer and others that have been doing the work for a while, continuing that conversation. How do we make sure that the students that we're responsible for feel comfortable when they're participating in our events, et cetera. So that's work that we've been doing. We have that information plus a number of resources. It's an emphasis for our association as we move into this year and as we hopefully get back to participating in activities. On the right there is a little logo, our STAR initiative that we're planning to roll out later this fall. Safety, tolerance, acceptance, and respect. Again, working with those other educational associations in the state to be able to make sure that our events, our hallways, our schools are safe places. They're welcoming environments for all concerned. So those are a couple of the initiatives that we have going at this point. And then I have my contact information there as well. And John and Sue, I welcome questions that people have. If I can provide any clarifications or anything, I'd be happy to try and do that.
Terrific. Thank you, Peter. So if folks have questions, if you'd drop it in the chat or raise your hand, we can get rolling with questions. So I'll start, Peter, and this is probably kind of a silly question, but with COVID and all the regulations and guidance and changes, what's been your biggest headache or biggest challenge right now?
I think the biggest challenge that we have is trying to keep up with all of the different directives and mandates. And I know when we talk to our schools, that can be an issue as well. We're trying to be supportive of our schools and the work that they're doing. And it's definitely a balance. As I said before, I think everybody wants to see our kids back engaged and participating, whether it's sports or activities or both or what have you. That's important. We see the value of what we're trying to do. We see the value that it has for students and for our communities. And we're trying to balance that with the health and safety aspect. Obviously, we need to fall within the parameters set by the OHA, by the governor's office, by ODE in some circumstances, as I mentioned, but trying to find that right balance of getting kids involved when it's safe to do so in that engagement that we know is so critical to their development.
Absolutely. Thank you. Scanning one more time for questions. And I don't see questions. So let me just, I know I'll miss something if I.
And I apologize for the Zoom issues that I have.
Yeah, no, it's all good. We get it with something different every day. Is that you, Ryan?
Yeah, hey, Sue, I have a quick question. I was trying to type, but I'm not a super fast typer. So I'll ask this question, and I think it's wonderful that we also have Superintendent Christy Perry on with us too, because it's sort of a question that's directed almost at both of you guys. Salem-Keizer is a super successful school district. Obviously, we're the second. I think eventually we're probably going to become the largest school district in the state. And yet there's a lot of very small school districts all around us that are struggling in many ways because they just don't have the resources to even help them and their students get through some of the pandemic issues. In OSAA's work with school districts all over the state, how can larger school districts like Salem-Keizer provide extracurricular, extra assistance to local smaller school districts who are struggling, and how are you two or your organizations partnering to help other disadvantaged school districts?
Christy, do you want to jump in on that one, or you want me to take it?
Let me start.
Okay.
So I am kind of committed as a leader to work virtually, regionally with the superintendents in the region. And so anytime those opportunities come up, I try to figure out how do we help. So for example, right now we're trying to help with Mill City, and as students enroll and try to enroll in Salem-Keizer, we're trying to connect them back to their school district, even if we help provide education, because we want Mill City to remain a vibrant school district and keep their kids and families connected and collect the dollars for their kids. So that's how I happen to approach it philosophically. And we work in a league where we also kind of try to cooperate in a league. It's a little tricky with athletics and extracurricular because of the guidelines around eligibility. But I'd say in this new world, we are probably more partner-like than ever. And then I'll hand it back to you, Peter. I think, see if that's what you're seeing as well.
Yeah, thanks, Christy. And I would echo that sentiment. And I know, having been on a number of Zoom meetings with superintendents, not just statewide, but also I was just on one with Willamette Education Service District, a week and a half ago with, and I'm on those around the state. And you have large districts and small districts and everybody trying to work through the same issues. One of the things that we try to provide from the OSAA leadership perspective is the idea of those best practices, that those things that work, for example, in Salem-Keizer can be used in other large districts, Hillsborough, Portland, Beaverton, and vice versa. They can share that information, but also making sure that we're having time for those conversations with our smaller districts as well. What does it look like for a district that maybe their high school only has 60 or 70 kids in it? And so the issues that they're facing are completely different than the issues that Christie and Salem-Keizer are facing. But how do we approach those? How do we provide best practice information to them? How do we put them in touch with other people either in their region or around the state? I mentioned our delegate assembly. We have a meeting coming up on October 12th. One of the things we do at that meeting is we break out into caucus groups with each classification meeting, all the 1A people meeting together in a breakout room to talk about the issues that are relative to their small school situation, that are different from a mid-sized 3A, 4A school, and certainly different from a 5A, 6A, but we can all learn from each other. I think that's been our focus throughout the process as well.
Great, thank you both for that. We have time for one more question, and I'm gonna send it back to our program chair, John McCulley, for that.
Well, and Peter, I'm sorry if I missed this in your earlier slides, and it's not related to anything really too exciting, but I'm interested in how many staff you have and how you're organized. You have individual staff people who oversee music and dance, et cetera. How does that work?
So we do, and thanks for the question, John. So we have a 12-person staff here in Wilsonville. We have assistant directors that oversee certain sports and activities, as you mentioned. When you were giving my bio coming up, when I was an assistant director, I oversaw baseball and golf and speech and debate. We have directors that oversee music. We have directors that oversee some of the different sports as well, given their background and expertise, et cetera. So we're a 12-person staff here in Wilsonville. And as I mentioned before, we rely on those relationships with our coaches association, our athletic directors association, as we work through, not only in a regular year, but certainly more so in the year that we're in right now, to have that communication and that collaboration moving forward. It's absolutely critical to the success of the programs that we have.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Peter. We really appreciate your time with us. And with that, thank you. In honor of you, we'll be making a donation to our very own Salem Rotary Foundation in your name. So thank you again for joining us. And it was very informative, and we appreciate your contact information as well. So we can reach out with more questions. So thanks again, and take care, and march forward, right?
That's right.
Okay, take care. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, John, thank you for bringing that program to us today. We'll move on to Rick Galpo and Bell Ringers.
All right. Let me see real briefly if I can share a screen, and if it works, great. If not, I won't worry about it. Am I sharing a screen?
Not yet. Oh, it's coming.
If somebody would tell me if I'm sharing, and if not, I'll
You are.
Okay.
You are. Yep.
Does it say super duper?
Says super duper.
All right. This first bell ringer, oh wait, the first bell ringer, not this one, the one before this is for last night's debate. Actually, no one said that. Okay, going on. Jane Downey, this next bell ringer is Jane Downey with the excuse me, I'm gonna slow down. Jane Downey with a Center of Hope and Safety is ringing the bell for Farah Etzel for matching our bell ringers up to $240. And for our 2 anonymous donors who are providing a $1,000 super duper match and a $5,000 super duper amazing match. Jane is so grateful to these fine Rotarians and all those ringing the bell and providing the matches this month. Thank you everyone for helping Salem Rotary Foundation grow. The Salem Rotary Foundation board members, Tim Nissen, Doug Parham, Linda Wooters, Barry Nelson, Larry Connick, Russ McCracken, and Jane Downey are ringing the bell together 7 times, thanking all the individuals and businesses that have matched bell ringers during the Salem Rotary Foundation month. Thanks to each of them and all those ringing the bell this month, the foundation will continue making a difference for the youth and families in our community for many years to come. Ring the bell 7 times. All right. John McCauley is ringing the bell for Pam Watson. Pam does an incredible job of putting together our weekly updates, making sure we have all the pertinent information about programs and club activities. She also prepares and sends out our monthly amphigram, the report from Jerry Frank, Salem Rotary Foundation Task Force. Thanks to her dedication, our communications are greatly enhanced. Please ring the bell. Tricia Frizzle is ringing the bell twice. Tricia is ringing the bell for all of her fellow parents trying to balance supporting their young kids distance learning while continuing to work 40 hours plus a week and navigate 2020. I see you. I know that she sees you. She knows the struggle is real some days. You are not alone. Virtual cheers to you all. Ring the bell. Tricia is also ringing the bell for all the programs in the community. Tricia is also ringing the bell for all the programs in the community who have continued to operate throughout the year. Thank you for creatively rising to the occasion to be a support and lifeline for many families during this humbling year. Tammy Denny is ringing the bell to share a professional update. As Rotary members are aware, Tammy has passionately served the Oregon Dairy Farmers Association for nearly 6 years. Go Dairy. Effective tomorrow, she will begin her service as an executive director of the Oregon Cattlemen's Association. So the news phrase you will be hearing is beef. It's what's for dinner. Ring the bell. I don't have a picture for this one, but Sue Bloom is ringing the bell for Ellen Wyatt for stepping in last week in Sue's absence. Ellen, Sue deeply appreciates you. Ring the bell. And our last one is of historical significance. On September 16th, 1620, a small ship set sail for a 3-hour journey. No, let's see the Mayflower. The Mayflower set sail, landing in Plymouth in November of 1620. On the voyage was William Bradford, who not only went on to help with the new settlement, but if he had not been made on this trip, one Rotarian might not be here today, as William Bradford is the grandfather 12 times over of Tom Golden Jr. So ring the bell for the 400-year celebration of the Mayflower setting sail and for Tom's great grandfather being on that trip.
That's awesome.
That is the prepared bell ringers. Warren, I think you had a bell ringer.
Thank you, Rick. So I wrote it out. Warren and Linda would like to ring the bell for the Salem Fire Department and Advanced Security. Yesterday, early in the morning, someone moved a cardboard recycle bin under a covered parking area, of which my office is just above, at our office, and lit the cardboard on fire. It just so happened that Advanced Security, who I have coming by twice a night, came along on their nightly inspection of our office and came upon the burning recycling bin, dampening the fire after calling for the fire department. Keep in mind that this recycling bin is a large steel container and could have done extensive damage if not caught. So ring the bell for the Salem Fire Department and especially for Advanced Security for initially catching the fire. Thank you.
Thank you. Marilyn, you have a bell ringer.
By the way, I've already paid.
Thank you.
Yes, I was trying to add up the other day how many lunches I haven't paid for. And I think it's probably at least 20. So I am going to donate $300 for all of those lunches that I didn't have to pay for.
Marilyn, how many times would you like me to ring the bell?
Once is fine. You allowed one.
Okay. Thank you. Rick, I don't see any others in the chat box.
Neither do I. I just included in the, or I will be including in the chat box for everyone how to pay for bell ringers. It is farther up in the chat, but I'll put it down right here as well.
Great. Thank you, Rick. And thank you everyone who participated in bell ringers today. So giving you the gift of time, we're going to end a little bit early. Our meeting next week is on the El Camino Trail experience. Pardon me?
Do you have time for announcements?
I do, Barry. Thank you. Do you have an announcement?
Well, as a matter of fact, I do.
Okay. What is it?
Well, it's concerning the Salem Rotary Foundation, and this being Salem Rotary Foundation Month, I've been asked to share a bit about the Salem Rotary Foundation, and instead of looking at me, I hope you're looking at this slide here, your foundation. And you've heard a lot about the small grants that Salem Rotary Foundation supplies through your generosity. But important to note the major projects that Salem Rotary Foundation has supported over the years as well. Y'all can read, so I won't read these for you, but this is just a small sampling of the major projects that our foundation, your foundation, has supported in the recent past, to the tune, since I became a member in 2008, of about anywhere from $25,000 up to $40,000 per year, as I recall. I think it's also important to remember, because periodically I forget, that this playground at Riverfront Park is the Rotary Children's Playground. In 1997, probably was one of our largest projects in collaboration with other Salem area clubs. This photo courtesy of Ron Cooper. The playground in Riverfront Park is the Rotary Children's Playground. Further down in Riverfront Park, of course, is the Rotary Centennial Pavilion, built in 2005 in celebration of 100 years of Rotary International. That surpassed the playground as our largest project. And this photo, taken by Ron Cooper about a month ago, is of course the Jerry Frank Salem Rotary Amphitheater. And if you were to visit there today, you would see more of the concrete pathways having been poured. And I understand Dalkey will be getting on site next week to begin some foundation work and things of that nature. So how can you support the foundation? Well, if you've rung the bell this month, you've done it. Those $20 bell ringers are each a deductible contribution to the Salem Rotary Foundation. You can do it the old-fashioned way and write a check payable to Salem Rotary Foundation. Tim Nissen is happy to accept that, either via the P.O. box, his home address, or I bet he'd even make a house call depending on the size of the check. Online at the same place where you are able to pay for your bell ringers, you can make a donation to the foundation of any amount. You can make a one-time donation or recurring gifts. The advent of our Centennial Project and the Amphitheater Project has seen an increase in the number of donations of appreciated assets. Appreciated securities are what have come in. But if you have, say Rolls-Royce Phantom from the 30s or something like that, just taking up space in the garage, we could probably find a way to take that off your hands without the capital gains as well. Those over the age of 70 and a half who don't have an RMD this year from their IRA or retirement plan, next year when that returns, you can donate directly from an IRA to any charity, and that counts toward your required minimum distribution, avoiding that taxable income. And of course, you can join the Salem Rotary Foundation's Legacy Circle by naming the foundation as a beneficiary of an IRA or a retirement plan, or otherwise naming Salem Rotary Foundation in your estate planning. So thank you for supporting the foundation, your foundation, this month, in the month of September, and remember the foundation going forward and every month as we are able to do what we do in the community as Rotary through your generosity to the foundation. So thank you very much. That concludes this presentation.
Thank you, Barry. Appreciate it very much, and all the wonderful work of the Rotary Foundation and what we're able to do in our community. So still going to give you the gift of time. Next meeting is the El Camino Trail experience, and we have several of our fellow Rotarians that have experienced the trail one or more times chatting with us next week, and that includes Mark Wolf, Ron Kellerman, and Lyndon Norris. So with that, we'll wrap.
Madam President?
Yes.
This is Tammy Denny. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I also have an announcement, very brief. It's for the full club. I was just advised earlier this morning that our club was given a Rotary citation for the 2019 through 2020 club year. So I wanted to tell everyone and share that with the entire club. So congratulations, club members. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Past President Tammy. Any other announcement? I've clearly fallen down on announcements today. All right. With that, I let you know what next week's meeting will be, and we're looking forward to hearing from Mark and Ron and Linda. And with that, enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, everybody.